Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the third episode of The Lockdown. We're joined by CBC executive producer Karen Sebesta. Karen, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. As we all like to say, when we're doing nothing, we're doing fine.
All right, there you go. Thank you for joining us today. So basically, we had a couple of questions, seeing that you are an Olympic producer and the executive producer of the Paralympics and special events. We wanted to know, you've been preparing so long. It's this is a 4-year planning, let's say. Once the Olympics are over, you start planning for the next ones, and it's been halted and delayed for a year. So how were you feeling emotionally when all of that hard work went into planning and then got postponed?
I think I'll start by saying, it's always a shout out to the frontline workers. We know there's far more people that are, suffering and are having challenges. So, that's the first thing, is that you feel incredibly guilty because there's really nothing to complain about. It's just pause, and we've got more time to prepare now at the high level. So you're dealing with guilt because you're not really doing anything, and you shouldn't be complaining. Okay, but the complaining is that it absolutely was a shock because in production we function like Olympic athletes. We're sort of on that quadrennial too, and we're sort of building momentum. And so where we were when this broke, COVID-19 situation, is we were just getting into, okay, we're going to start ramping up now. We're coming into the home stretch. So April, May, June, July, the games were to start July 25th. Those are the last 3 months. This is when we go full steam, 7 days a week, 70 hours a week or more. We are into production and rehearsals by early July. So the wheels were really in motion, and the momentum was behind you like a freight train. So for this to pause and shut down for the first couple of weeks, you're sort of like, oh, okay. And then as it starts to settle in, you realize you've lost everything. I was supposed to be producing World Figure Skating the week that it broke. And that was a pinnacle of my career. We had all of these programs coming up. And so the first week there's shock, but you don't really know. And now it's started to settle in. Like, this is really serious. Like, this is going to be a long time. And it's getting heavy. It's getting heavy emotionally as we go on. It's getting tough. So I think that's sort of where we were. It's sort of really starting to sit in, like, wow, we got to really now pull back, and we have a whole another year, and wow, we got to really sort of change the pacing.
We spoke to Marissa Papaconstantina yesterday, and she was talking about how she had put in all this work, and now she kind of has to slow down, but the show must go on. It is still looking like the Olympics is going to happen a year from now. So what does it look like in terms of, obviously it's not going to happen right now, but continuing those preparations and now looking a year ahead?
Yeah, certainly for the athletes like Marissa, we've been doing a lot of Instagram TV, IGTV. I've been coordinating a content group of people, trying to still have a strategy. We're using Rewind Wednesdays, where at CBC Sports we're playing older sports. And then Saturday we have old Olympic programming, so Olympic replay. And so we're that's what I've been working on, is putting a framework around that. And certainly the narrative that you hear is that for some athletes, they're sort of like in the same category as me. Oh my goodness, I thought there was going to be games this year, and then I could get on with life where I could pivot and do something different. Or, now I got to kind of decide, can I make it another year if you're a certain age? If you're young, like you alluded to Marissa, like, she has lots of time. I mean, she did give up a school year this year, but now she's going to have to give up another school year. And so things are on hold, but maybe her chances just got better. So how I personally see it is really as two things. From an Olympic sport perspective, and should we find vaccines and everything happen, Olympic sport will not be back until the fall, maybe even November at the earliest, just because Olympic athletes, their training schedule, getting, their programs together and being how they to behave, we wouldn't see competitions until fall. So when that happens, those competitions will happen, those qualifications will happen. There'll be all sorts of coverage of all sorts of sports. And then you're going to move into the Summer Games and the Summer Paralympics in 2021. And 6 months later, you're going to have the Winter Olympics and Paralympics in Beijing. So you have 6 months between games. So the strategy now becomes, wait a second, we're not just pausing and prepping for a year. No, no, no. We need to also prep for the Winter Olympics and Paralympics. So we're going to do 2 Olympics and Paralympics. So for me, that's 4 events, because I'm a senior on the Olympics and a show producer on the Olympics and then the exec of the Paras, 4 events within 6 months, which means you have to redo your strategy and think about how are we going to do this and all the programming that leads up to it. So the work is overwhelming about how much planning and organizing and people, and can one person work on 2 things? I will, but can other people? You're going to need 2 groups. So you're going to need a lot more people, a lot more staff. There's going to be lots of work. And really what the sport industry is saying is that we're going to do 3 years of sport in 2. So I think that's daunting, you know?
What was it like, this is such a, specific circumstance. What was it like to lead during this crisis, a team of people? How did you manage people's emotions and keep things in check?
Yeah, thank you for asking that, because it's also something that I would say to everybody out there who's going to watch this. When you start your career, you're pretty much mostly what we do in this business is hands-on. You're doing something, right? You're creating something. And all of us who are leaders now started that way. And there's something so satisfying about doing something and seeing a result. People that are doing technical jobs right now that are going in and doing the news, associate directors, font operators, editors are busy, like there's people that are doing something. When you get to a management level and an organizing level, you got to really start looking at that. You're not really doing anything except you are, but you're kind of not. And that's a mental thing you're totally processing. So you have to take yourself out of it and you have to look at your people. And really at CBC Sports, that's what it was. There was this big reaction that everybody wanted to do stuff. I'm going to go on Instagram TV. I'm going to write a story. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And you saw very quickly that people were doing stuff, but there was no collaboration and no sort of overarching strategy, which we have all the time when we do something on a regular basis in a regular structure. And you go in a building and you have meetings and you realized, wait a second, we got to pull everybody together and sort of create framework and structure. And so that's what I did for a couple of weeks. It's you make a bunch of Excel docs, you talk to people, you get everybody focused on doing something every week. And I think that's the reward. Now there's like 35 people instead of doing stuff by themselves. Everybody knows what their agenda item is that they have to do every week. And now the machine is working. We're responsible to the CBC. They want to see that sports continues. And what are you going to do? Because we get it, there's no sports, but that doesn't mean you get off the hook. We want 3 hours of programming. We want the website to have content. We want you to still be doing stuff in a safe way. And what are you going to do? So that's where we are. And now, as we go forward, I think you guys are smart enough to know you'll see stations like TSN and Sportsnet, Global, ESPN, NBC, they'll look at professional sports, and you will see pro sports come back by summer. Sure. I can't imagine they don't want to have some form of the NFL. That's the most protected sport. I think golf, you'll see golf first for sure. It's a distance sport anyway. Auto racing, you might be able to do that. Like they're going to find ways to do stuff. New formats, new rules, new competitions, but they're going to do something. But where does that leave us as see an Olympic sport? Nowhere, because it's just not financially there. Where pro sports, they want the broadcast rights. The next 6 months for CBC Sports is going to be very interesting because we're going to have to develop programming, develop ideas, develop shows. That how do we keep ourselves relevant? How do we still satisfy sponsors? How do we pay bills? What do we do between sort of, let's say, July and December 2020, when there might only be one rugby game? I don't know, like there's not a lot of content. So we'll see. It's going to be challenging later for us, I think.
You think sports are going to be back before, like during the summer, but when do you see fans and like stadiums being filled again with people coming back?
I think from the sports world, which if I went back to the first year I taught, which is like 14, 15 years ago, there's something about sports that is all about, analysis and predictions and that kind of dialogue and talk TV, and we love it. And I think that there's so many great ideas and so many smart people out there. There's lots of ways to get fans in the stadium. I can think just even for myself, if we just start brainstorming ideas, if they do the antibody test and you have antibodies, you get an orange bracelet, and that then allows you to be able to get a ticket to go to a venue because you have antibodies, and you have to sit they maybe just you sit 2 seats away from somebody. So that's fine. That would work. That's a way. Taking temperatures and all that stuff, so is a stadium full of 50,000 screaming fans? I think of TFC and that, fan state section. I don't think you're going to see that I don't think you're going to see that in 2020. I think you're not even going to see that until later, maybe in 2021 if we have vaccines. But think about this. Okay, so you get a vaccine for COVID-19, then what else is there? What's going to come? So maybe putting 50,000 people in a stadium, just that isn't the way anymore. Maybe it is that the seats are farther apart and you can still go. And I think that's still okay. I think they'd want to create a fan experience. And so it's just more intimate. Hey, that's better. That's better if you didn't have nosebleed seats at baseball games. It'd be better if everything was closer and you could be high home or just third baseline or something, like that'd be better for the fan. So I think there'll be a lot of movement towards that. I think it starts with someone like Trump, who was talking to the four sport commissioners. It's about broadcast rights. So never mind. They want to get it back on TV. They want to get it back streaming because that does engage the fans. And think about how smart we are now with doing stuff on Instagram TV and having interaction and Facebook Live and streaming on YouTube. I mean, think how good now these platforms are at engaging a fan and engaging an audience. So if you can have 25% of your audience living on those platforms now who weren't before, you've won. And you can have half the stadiums filled. I don't know. People are really doom and gloom about it. They're like, oh, we're never going to go back. Are you kidding me? Of course you're going to go back. But, so you're going to get better seats. So here's the thing. Are they more expensive? Are the owners that own these rights and own these stadiums, are they assholes and they make those seats all $300 now so nobody can go? Or are we a better world where, I haven't taken my kids, that we barely could afford to go to a hockey game. And I worked in hockey for 10 years. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it shouldn't be that outrageous. Maybe you shouldn't have to be dying and be a cancer kid to get to a sporting event. Like, that's harsh, but right? Like, it's hard to get tickets. And why do we have to have nosebleeds? So maybe there's some good that comes out of it, right?
To touch on the social media, it's kind of showing how much, social media and digital media is robust in that it's surviving this and is almost thriving in a way because everyone's kind of leaning on it. I'm wondering where you see social media, shifting and changing in the next, 5 or 10 years in terms of how, networks focus in on that content.
I'm going to be that voice that says it's not 5 or 10 years, Nick, it's 1 year and it's 6 months. And so after this is over, by the time we get to August, nobody's going to want to watch another interview in someone's bedroom or living room ever again. People like spectacle, people like production, people like connection. And I think you're going to see, I think digital stays where it stays. If I can watch broadcast and big production and money and showmanship, an event, I think that people want that. I'm going to say it like this. Until the advertising world says, not interested in television, not giving you any money, putting all my pre-roll commercials on Zoom chats, it's not going to happen. Production value is important. Something raw and authentic is great, but fundamentally, if I see celebrities and stuff, I just want to see their house. I want to see where they live.
Yeah, I think it's still kind of like you said before. We're kind of forced to watch these things because there's not as much content as there was. And I think when everything does go back to normal, the people will want to see good quality content. And like you said, they're not going to want to watch people in their room. I wanted to ask you. You were saying how a lot of people right now their lives are kind of on freeze right now. But in terms of the sport media industry and Olympics and all these games coming up, it can be really overwhelming. So for you personally, continuing to work and working even harder now, but doing that at home, how has that transition been? And has it been easier for you to work at home or more difficult to stay motivated at home?
Oh yeah, like fast version is that I used to crave days I could work at home because I would go to the office and you're distracted by every other, conversation you have in the hallway. And, 50% of those conversations are me having a conversation. The story for me is always there's never been a conversation I didn't like, because I'm looking to talk to people. So I would crave days working at home because I would actually get work done and creative work and thinking of ideas and stuff. I needed to have that quiet. Now, this is a whole other brain set to get up, and that's easy. I'll get up, I know how to shower and get dressed and get ready to work and sit at the computer and, get out of the chair. I know how to structure my day. I'm a producer, so that part's easy. The creativity is brutal because now I don't have that deadline. I had a deadline. I have to get this done by this day, by this day. It's like being a student, right? If you're like me, you it was 3 weeks. You could have a month for a bloody assignment, but you never did it until the week of or 3 days before. That's where my best shit came from, doing something 24 hours before. Like, that's what drove me. I'm an adrenaline junkie, and that pressure is what drives me. Now, okay, great. I have four Olympic programs to oversee, manage, and run. So let's cue the meetings. Let's start talking, more Excel spreadsheets, more planning. And it's like, ugh, it seems so far away. The deadline isn't close enough, and then you have to come up with ideas. And it's like, well, I don't know. But I don't even know if I have any more ideas. And yet when you're in an adrenaline-based environment and you have deadlines, you surprise yourself all the time because, oh my God, I didn't think I could come up with something. And you know what? Hey, I did. So for me, this should be easy, but it is probably, obviously, it's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life because I'm a person that needs 9 things on the go and I need pressures of deadlines. That's what's made me successful. And now you've taken that away. So jump forward by December and by 2021, I'll have that pressure again in theory, but what do I do for the next 6 months? So the reality, to answer your question, is that I have a job to do, and that's what being an executive producer is. In good times and bad times, an executive producer means you understand the sport world that you're in, you understand the infrastructure, you understand what people can do, and your job is to create a system so people can do something.
So as a final question here, you spoke a lot about like all these sports are going to be jammed up together. Like even the Euros are going to be 2021 and then the World Cup 2022. And I was supposed to go this summer to the Euros, and apparently fans are going to be there next summer in the stands as well. So who knows how that's going to go. But my question is, how do you, like, this is going to be all scrammed together and like sports are going to take over the world probably more than they ever have. So how do you see the sport media industry handling that and transforming beyond belief?
I think the reality is, in the past, specifically speaking to students, in the past, I've always said you should know what you don't like and sort of know what you do like. And the people that have been able to say, I only want to work in baseball, I only want to work in soccer, I only like hockey. I've had lots of students like that along the way, that they really have a passion for something. Those young people have gone on and had success because, everything else was like, doesn't motivate me, doesn't inspire me. So, I want to go to hockey, I'm going to go to Phoenix. And I had a young person and they were working in hockey. I've seen success, young woman who wanted to work in baseball ended up, following baseball. So I think, and the rest of the people were okay with a bit of this, a bit of that, whatever, and they sort of found that they could be sort of generalists and find something. I think my gut says going forward, you're going to have to choose because there's going to be so many opportunities. You're not going to know, you can't just be gray. So if I'm thinking of myself as I'm hiring somebody and I'm going to hire a ton of people, I had already been hiring people. So now, it's pause. listen, if you like soccer, awesome. I have a job for you in the soccer suite, and you're going to work on soccer on the Olympics. If you say to me, oh, I want to be a field producer, I'm going to go, I can't help you. So go over here. Like, if you say I like auto racing, then don't come to me for a job, but go over here and get a job. So I think it's going to be more important than ever going forward for people to really sort of decide, okay, what sport do I want to work on? Because I think there's going to be work. And I think it'll be easier if you know that I really want this sport. I really like figure skating. Good. Let's go to Skate Canada. Here's ISU. Have you looked at Skate Ontario? Like, you'll be able to strategically go, and they'll need people. But production people that know how to write, know how to find highlights, know how to navigate computers and technologies. Nick asked something about how's it going to change in 5 years. It's not 5 years. It's still now. Like, being able to do subclip and use these programs like Adobe Premiere, and Final Cut's kind of dead now, but I think to put the bow tie on it, I think you still stay your course, your dream. If you always wanted to be on air, I don't think you let that die. But I do think if you know you really wanted to be on air for soccer, then you target working with One Media or DAZN. They have a lot of soccer. You go in there and you say, you know, I can do highlights, I can write, I can do stuff with soccer, and you go and work there because they were already growing. Media Pro was growing and had tons of stuff. One of our graduates, Adam Jenkins, was working there as a host, and they were just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So to your point, like, they'll be huge in the next 2 years. Look at the amount of soccer that's going to be, the backlog of football, like soccer. Oh my God, it's going to be huge, right? So more kids that are graduating knowing that that's what they want to work in, at least for the next year or two, you'll get a job, I think.
Karen, we just wanted to thank you for taking the time to talk to us. We know you're extremely busy right now, and I know we all hope to see Olympics back as soon as possible, and I know there's probably no one that wants to see them back more than you. So thank you for taking the time, and we hope to see you soon.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.